It's recording.
Welcome back to the Mentors.
We're
walking right now.
We're walking. It's frigid. It's frigid in New York. In fact, it's going to be in the negatives this week. But we're walking right now through Washington Square Park at New York University, where I, Sergey, work. And we're going to a bar on West 3rd Street, where we're going to be interviewing a couple of people who just went through a very intensive 2-week sprint at NYU to validate their concepts. And these folks, some of them have done upwards of 80 to 100 customer interviews in the last couple of weeks, so we actually think it's going to be a really valuable thing to share with you all.
Yes, especially for those of you that are thinking about starting their own business and are kind of in the validation and early stages. This is exactly what a lot of entrepreneurs go through, and I think it's a good way to kind of see it through the lens of somebody else that goes through it in a more structured way, because obviously NYU has a ton of resources that they provide for their students. Funny thing just happened, and I love every time this happens. Obviously, Sergey works at NYU. I visit the Leslie E-Lab there quite frequently, but every time I come in to a room full of students that have been exposed to Sergey for the last few weeks, it's really funny to see their confused faces when another copy of Sergey, or as I like to say, he is the copy of me, but well, semantics.
I'm the younger brother, I suppose, I guess. But they don't, many people don't actually
They're weirded out.
know that I have a twin brother. And they are shocked, to say the least, because they love me so much. If there's two of me, it's like overwhelming, I think, almost a little bit.
I know, twins are weird. They're weird for me too. It's fine.
Kids here in the park with giant bubble makers. There's skater boys on razor scooters.
It's actually a relatively beautiful day.
No, and New Yorkers still love it. I don't get it.
It's high 30s today. It's not too bad. Okay.
It's not too bad. We digress. But actually, the park is a really cool place. The fact that it's here right next to the Entrepreneurial Institute at NYU, because a lot of the teams actually go into the park to do customer interviews. Like, they will just literally, we call them intercepts, street intercepts. They will literally stop people or put a table up or something in the park, so people come up and talk to them, and they can kind of share what they're working on and try to validate if people have the problems that they're trying to solve. And you can get sometimes 50 people in the park, so it's pretty cool.
And I actually did this with my high school student entrepreneurship class this summer, because we were right down the street from Washington Square Park, and we came into the park, and they had to approach people cold, pitch them in their ideas, try to get their email addresses, whatever the next step was or the goal was for that particular interaction. And it's a great experience for a 15-year-old. I mean, hell, it's a great experience for a 50-year-old. But for a 15-year-old to, like we like to say, get comfortable with being uncomfortable and communicating your message to strangers, because pretty quickly you realize it's actually not that bad. What's the worst that can happen? But there's potentially a lot of value that can come from that in helping you get outside of your comfort zone and build some new skills.
All right, we are a block away from the bar right now, so we're gonna hit pause for a second, and we'll cut back when we meet our first team of entrepreneurs. So we'll be right back after these messages from our sponsor. Just kidding, we have no sponsors.
Yeah. But if you do want to sponsor the show, please email us at Vadim or Sergey at thementors.co.
You recording, Vadim?
I'm recording, Sergey.
Excellent. All right, we are here with the founders of Gig Finesse. We got Mir Huang, and we have his co-founder, Ryan Kim. Guys, we're standing outside the bar right now on West 3rd Street, and I love how immediately when you walked into the bar, you were still hustling. The program is over, and you went right up to the bartender and you asked them if they have musical acts. So I love that, and I think that's a good reflection of what happened in the last couple of weeks. Can you tell our audience really briefly what it is that your business does, and then we'll follow up with what happened in the last few weeks during the NYU January sprint?
So basically, I've been a long-time live musician myself, and I've like gigging and playing shows all around the country. I've just realized how archaic and slow the whole booking process was between the venues and the artists, and they both had separate flaws, and there are a lot of hurdles that both parties were facing. For instance, with artists, there are a lot of talented artists out there that can't really market or sell themselves, and some of them just don't, they're tired of cold calling, or they're tired of being forced to go through promoters or talent buyers that take huge cuts of their paycheck, which is already very slim to none, so they're having a hard time surviving in the music industry. From the venues, they don't really have a system that collects data to really help book reliable musicians and kind of scroll through hundreds and thousands of emails that they receive per year. So this is something that I was very passionate about, and I wanted to create a web platform that kind of streamlined this booking process for both parties. And we've been, working hard at it for the past 5 months. And
That's right.
yeah.
That's right. Ryan just quit his lucrative engineering job at Google to join you here full time. So you must be a good salesman. Well, okay. So
Actually, not to gloss over that, recruiting talent is one of the hardest things to do, and recruiting a partner is one of the hardest things to do in the earliest stages. So if you can establish that trust, that can go a very long way.
So then, actually, let me ask you this question, Ryan. You quit your job to pursue this. What gives you the confidence that it's going to work? Because I think you're taking a pretty big risk, and I'm proud of you. But why did you decide to do that?
Well, first off, it's just because I know Mir. We're cousins, and we've known each other for quite a long time now. And yes, we've never done startups together, but I know he's done other business before, car companies and clothing companies, and I know how he goes to the customers and always try to find out more and more. And not as much as Mir, but I've been to live music, I've been to his shows and everything, how he interacts with everyone else, and how he's very passionate about this problem.
Yeah.
He brought me to a lot of venues, the bars, the clubs, and all the artists to show to me directly the problem that it is and how we can solve it.
Well, there you go. A huge vote of confidence. The reason why Ryan quit his job is because he believes in his co-founder's ability to execute. And of course, his co-founder, Mir, believes in his ability to execute on the technical side. And the only way that was possible is because they observed how the other one works. And they see it. They know each other really well. And that really is a good lesson for how to find co-founders, how to get people to work with you, is you got to trust each other. We've talked about this many times on this show. But what I want to talk about next is what happened over the last couple of weeks, because you guys hustled and got, I think it was, 65 interviews?
67,
is that right?
yeah, 67 interviews.
67 interviews with everyone from bar owners to DJs, musicians. Tell us how you did this, and how were you able to just get that volume of interviews over such a short period of time, and what were some of the biggest learnings that you had?
Right, so it really does help, right? Just like I think any creative industry, the whole group of creatives, they're very tight-knit and they really want to help each other out. So for us, because I was approaching it not from a software developer or a business perspective, but one of their own who also faced all these problems and faced all these issues, I think that really helped both parties to really want to help me out. I think that was one of our strong suits. So there was a lot of oh, hey, I can vouch for these guys. Let me introduce you to another venue owner, or let me introduce you to my friend. He's been gigging all over the city, for 10 years. He might be a great help. So that really helped us a lot. And I would say another, just overall, just how you said, just going around and not being afraid to, ask people, hey, what are the current processes? I wonder why you guys don't have this, or is there a certain reason, or what are the flaws, or what made you choose to just stick with what you guys have right now? And most of the times, I think if you just approach them the right way, they're actually very happy to talk to you. And as long as, I feel one thing I learned is, as long as you don't go on busy nights, whether it be evenings or whatever, for example, just now it's happy hour, but it's also not really busy, right? So they're also bored and they're also looking for new people to talk to and interact with, and I think that really helps us.
I think that's a huge point, Mir, that you made, is you get people at the right time, and also a lot of times people want to be helpful. So if you have some trepidation about reaching out to people to do this customer discovery work, which is what I'm assuming you're doing, to give the audience a little bit of context, they just went through a program that is essentially to validate some of the problems that you had and identify the value that you're actually proposing and bringing to these customers, and even what your customer profile is, right? And so to do that, you need to have as many conversations as possible. So this is no small feat, but a focus that does need to happen. And actually, to follow up, Mir, did you guys do walk-ins? What are the semantics there? How did you get these meetings? Was it sending cold emails, cold calling, just cold walk-ins, or reaching out to your network?
So I think it varies, right? With a lot of artists, there are some cold calls. There's obviously a lot of people who want us to meet other musicians because they're, again, very tight-knit community. Once we also prove our concept to a couple venue owners, they're more likely to open their contacts and other doors to different venues. So we've been meeting a lot of people that way. And also, I haven't been scared to email a lot of people. So my belief is, hey, if you shoot 100 emails, at the very least, at least 5 or 10 people are going to email me back. And
how many did you send in the last couple of weeks?
I've probably sent at least around 60 emails, and I've sent it in various industries, like, you know, art galleries, hotels, restaurants, and just trying to, you know, gauge as much information as possible and to gauge, you know, what other clients can we potentially serve down the road.
Yeah, and another thing I want to highlight too is that Mir had the experience of booking 250 gigs manually without a technical platform. Right now they're trying to build sort of, not to overly simplify it, but the Airbnb of helping artists find venues to book. But Mir had done 250 manual bookings, so he knew the process inside out. He could relate to the bar owners, to the booking agents. He could relate to the musicians, the DJs. So starting up a conversation, I'm sure, was probably a little bit easier at that point because he already knew exactly their pain points, right?
Right. No, it definitely was. And it was also very important for me to not go in with the mindset of like, I already know all your problems, right?
Yeah.
So that really helped me too. And I had to really check myself to go in and be like, hey, you know, like, I want to learn more about your specific booking experiences and what kind of problems you face as an individual.
This is actually really important to mention because here you're clearly showing empathy towards the prospect and the person that you're talking to. You're valuing their time and you actually want to create something of value for them. You're not just trying to pitch something and shove something down their throat and sell. And even in sales, by the way, this is customer discovery. It's slightly different types of conversations. You're still building relationships though. And even in sales, before you prescribe, you really need to understand the pain and spend the time on that.
Any parting words, lessons for would-be entrepreneurs, somebody new that maybe is starting, that wants to build a multi-sided marketplace, which is what you guys have. You're going to have musicians and venues. Any major lessons that you learned either in the last couple of weeks or longer than that?
Well, I think the first thing that I want to really touch on for both Ryan and I are, this is something that we're both very passionate about, right? So no matter how many hours we put into it, or like how many different steps that we need to, like hurdles that we need to overcome, I think it's something that we're very happy to do, so it doesn't feel like work. So that's like a huge, I think, foreground and something that we, like, everyone should think about before I think they jump in very seriously.
Yeah. Care about the customer. That why run a business where you don't care about the customer at all, right?
Right, exactly. And another thing is, I think just a lot of people are scared to just take the risks, you know, and rejections. And I mean, it is a very scary thing. And in the beginning, I was very scared about it too. But I just realized, you know, if you don't reach out and if you don't ask and if you can't start up a conversation, those are all doors that you are choosing to close yourselves.
Yeah.
So no matter what happens, I always just try to talk and start up a conversation, and usually that's been leading us to good places. So I think that's one of the takeaways.
If you had to pick one thing of value that you got over the last 2 weeks that's really actionable that you're going to now, that either is changing your strategy or helping inform it, what would it be from the last 2 weeks?
So the best takeaway that I think we both got out of the program was most definitely keeping an open mind, right? Just because we came in thinking, hey, so we've booked so many shows already, and we thought we had a very clear line of direction for the next couple of years. But, you know, diving deeper into the market and doing more endless customer discoveries, we realized that we could look at it more in a broad way and do what we do best, but also really pinpoint within that segment and help those that need our help the most. And those are going to be our core fans, our core clientele that's going to vouch for us and will deliver and share our platform and what we believe in through other people. So, and that's, I think, how we've been getting a lot of like positive feedback and how we've been successfully getting to know more and more people in the music industry.
Great. Well, thanks a lot, guys, for coming on the show and sharing the wisdom that you learned in the last couple of weeks and even longer than that. And I hope to bring you guys back on maybe in 6 months when you're full on running this business full time right after you graduate.
Thank you so much.
Here with Yo Stay Hungry. The founders are Sarita Gates and Aris Johnson, and this is an interesting company.
Hey.
One that you've run for 4 years, and finally now it's turning into a company now that you found out about the Leslie E-Lab.
Yeah,
it's
give
turning
thanks.
into the real thing. So
Yes.
tell me about what you guys do, what you've been doing for 4 years,
Absolutely.
and how now it's turning into a business.
Absolutely. So for the last 4 years, essentially, I Googled hip hop and food quite a few years ago, and the only thing that came up was literally a few articles that just mentioned food lyrics. I was working with young people at the time. I was like, oh, it'd be really cool if we partner young people with coach chefs and they cook these hip hip hop lyrics. Hip hop is all about like double entendres and beef specifically. So I was like, duh, why don't we just do that? So we did 4 last year in 2018. We did a tour. We went to Philadelphia, DC, Newark, New Jersey. We did our first middle school one, and then last but not least, our annual Biggie Day. So it's really becoming a business now that we're at the E-Lab, because we can figure out things like business model canvases and profit and loss statements and all of these like other acronyms that are actually important when you're talking about like revenue and that matters.
And you're definitely thinking about it now as entrepreneurs, because you've been doing this for some years. So you have up to 200-300 people come to the events.
Yeah, absolutely.
To these events,
it's
right?
kind of crazy.
It's crazy.
Why do they come?
People love it. Right? So now that's what you're learning, is why people come.
Yeah.
So my first question, part of the reason why I wanted to have you on the show today, is because over the last 2 weeks at the January Sprint at NYU, you were able to schedule a lot of interviews with businesses, with actually marketing agencies. In fact, you did, I think, 36 or something like that
weekend.
over the weekend.
Crazy.
How did you do that? Because getting businesses to talk to you, or people that work for companies to talk to you over a weekend, is really hard, and to schedule more than 30 over that period of time is really hard. How did you get those interviews?
Referrals. So I actually had maybe like 5 to 10 friends who are in the advertising agency in a bunch of different avenues. So one was an account director, 2 or 3 were copywriters, creative directors, etc. And I was like, listen, I need the favor, right? The favor of life. I need you to connect me to as many account managers as you know. And they was like, all right. And I sent them a text. Shout out to Staying Ready So You Don't Gotta Get Ready. I shot them a text. Hey, this is the information I need. I need 10 to 15 minutes of your time. We can do a phone call, and then we can follow up later on in person. And shout out to the team. The team made it happen. Literally.
So you're saying staying ready so you can get ready. Say that again?
Yeah. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Right. You mean, so that's like when you were texting them, you were following up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not only following up, but when people were saying, okay, what do you need so I can make this intro? I'm like, here you go.
Yeah, you made it really easy. Okay.
Exactly.
So you were talking to marketing agencies to see if you can get sponsors for your events, because you do live events.
Yep.
They're called activations, is the fancy word that marketers use.
Yes. Surprise.
Surprise, right? So, well, now you're going to hopefully make some money. What did you learn? How much money do you think you can potentially make from sponsors?
Yeah.
And what were some of the biggest things you learned in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I think the market is endless just as far as how much we could make from sponsors, because brands have been doing sponsorships literally for years. So I think it's about us being intentional around what value we bring to these sponsors and just putting a crazy price tag on it. What was your second question?
My second question is, I don't remember what it was, but now I'm curious. Now I'm curious.
Give me a new question.
I'm curious. How do you communicate the value to brands about what you're doing, because that's not easy to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one, the benefit of us having been doing this for the last 4 years is we have crazy amounts of content, right? And sometimes we can show you better than we can tell you. And so one, I think the benefit of us having just relationships with people in general in the advertising agency is they can vouch for us. Some of them have been to our events, but we can say, actually come out to an event. Like, actually one of the strategies that we learned in the E-Lab is like, what does it look like if we actually invite these brand managers to be a judge at the Yo Stay Hungry competition? So that's kind of like one avenue. And just thinking about the content that we've created overall, we have so many videos. The audience speaks for itself, and they tell their friends and their friends and their friends who might be account managers, right? Like, we have literally created, we're able to use the assets that we have just as far as like the digital content, the social media, etc., and then really reach out to these brands in a powerful way.
Are you guys getting any help with this? Because that sounds like a lot of content to deal with, and I think people get overwhelmed. You can capture the content, but then how do you actually make use of it?
Yeah, I hate social media.
We have a whole video crew that comes to the competition.
And what, they work for free?
No.
Okay, so you have to pay them.
Yes.
Okay, got it. All right. And how expensive is that?
It's like our highest ticket item currently.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And it can cost up to a couple $1,000s, as I understand, to put on each event.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Will you guys make some of that money back? And can you talk anything about the revenue numbers?
Yeah, we've been doing it half-assed. We actually have been doing it for free for the last 4 years.
They're philanthropists, I think.
At this point, yeah. So now and this was one of the reasons why we want to join the sprint, because we really want to be intentional around getting the money. Like, obviously, we're providing some type of value, but now it's for us to step back, which we we were open to, right? Like we came here like, all right, if the competition doesn't work, fuck it, we gonna do something else. You know what I'm saying? So now we get to step back, reevaluate the situation, and say, okay, how can we move powerfully, specifically with getting money?
I mean, as an entrepreneur, it's really important to stay flexible and adapt because, and now you're learning that you don't have all the information, and so once you get the information, that's how you know what direction to adapt to.
But you guys clearly were able to create a lot of value throughout this process because, I mean, it was fortunate that you had the luxury of being able to invest a little bit of capital into this and hire videographers and whoever you needed to actually put on these events. But now you have tons of relationships that you can go to. You're not starting from zero. That's one of the hardest things for any entrepreneur to do is, I identify an opportunity, I identified a potential way to generate revenue, but where do I start? Who do I go to? You guys don't have the problem of who do I go to. You just have to now figure out how do you communicate the value proposition to generate the revenue.
Correct.
Let me pose this question to Aris, the head chef of the operation, who's cooking up a lot of things for this business coming up in the next. You guys have had a bunch of conversations with marketing agencies. You're going to be talking to brand managers now. You're trying to get after the money this year so you can not only cover costs but actually make some money with these events. Talk about how much do you think you can make per event? How much brands do you think are going to be willing to spend? I mean, at least based on what you learned in the last couple of weeks of having these interviews.
Well, we kind of had an idea. We created a deck and we kind of came up with some numbers. So like, okay, for $125,000, you could sponsor us for 10 competitions, and we could do the competitions for like $25,000 to $50,000 each. $50,000 being the biggest number for the biggest competition. So, but now, actually today, through the sprint and after being reviewed by you guys, we kind of realized that we could possibly get even more money than we projected. So I don't know. If you want a number, I would say maybe like low to mid hundreds.
I mean, we always push people to ask for more than you think you'll get, because you don't know. Like
you can always dial back. Right?
Exactly, you can always dial back, and you don't want to sell with your own wallet. Brands are willing to spend a lot of money on this kind of thing, right?
And because we know where it's double-sided market at this point, we can go after not only beverage companies, food companies, kitchen utensils. Like there's so many different types of brands that we can go to. We could also go to principals, right? We could also partner with, like, there's the possibilities are literally endless right now.
You guys have done some really creative stuff going through school, so you have an automatic population of people, students that would come to these events.
Audience.
Audience, exactly. So then another thing is, I think these kind of event type of businesses, they require an ability to get a lot of people to support you, volunteers to help, people that you'll pay as well. What's your philosophy? How do you go about attracting the right people? I mean, even your partner here, how do you go about that?
So one of the things that we actually value that's on our website, yostayhungry.com, is #TeamUs, right? One, we have two other partners, Zaki, who runs all like the music, curates it in a very particular way, and Kat Delva, who does all of the production. So it's a team of 4, right? So we're just here representing in this particular time. But just as far as how we get people to volunteer, et cetera, we make requests all the time with people, right? And so especially being that we're putting on this event for free, we'll go out, I host the events, I'll say, hey, we need y'all support doing A, B, C, D, and E, and people follow up, which is crazy, but closed mouths don't get fed, right? And so if we aren't making the ask, people don't know how they can support unless we specifically tell them how to support.
And another thing is, another big component we thrive off of is gratitude. And nobody can say thank you better than Sarita Gates.
How do you say thank you?
I mean, all the time, often. It's also knowing people's love languages, right? So if I know Aris loves acts of service, I'm like, oh, Aris, how can I do something for you that'll be meaningful in such a way that you get that I appreciate it. So
I think this is the first time on our podcast that a business person has mentioned love languages. And I commend you for that, because I think that's pretty awesome.
Maybe we'll do a whole episode during one of your events about love languages. But why do you think people say yes and give you the free time? I mean, is it just because they're excited about what you're doing, or what's their benefit from all this?
So we definitely do an excellent job at selling a vision, right? So that's primary. But people, we shape it in such a way that we want people to be a part of it. I founded Yo Stay Hungry. I rarely say I. It's always we, right? And so I'm always intentional around how can we build a culture in which everybody who's a part of it, whether it's a volunteer who came out to rock out for the day, Aris, the team, whether it's the young people who say yes, that they are part of something larger. So every contribution means the exact same, right? So I'm not like, oh, Aris is worth more than the young person who said yes, or the volunteer is worth more than the coach chefs. Like, everybody contributes equally, and it's reminding people that your contribution matters.
That's huge. Yeah,
Yeah,
everybody's
everybody's
VIP.
VIP,
I love that. As a
Are
leader,
we
you,
VIPs?
I feel like a VIP just having this conversation.
Yes.
You guys have so much energy. I love it. That's a huge takeaway for me personally, that as a leader of an organization, you have to be able to sell people on the vision.
Yeah.
And you have to show appreciation. It's not just a millennial thing. Everybody wants to feel appreciated.
Everybody.
And if you show them appreciation, they
Absolutely.
will turn the mountains over for you.
Literally every mountain.
Yeah.
I almost shed a tear in the class today when everybody was saying like, "Yo, thank y'all for just saying good morning to us."
We
like
don't think about
stuff
that
matters.
stuff.
Yeah, well, yo, stay hungry. Thank you so much for getting on the show. Good luck to you. I'm looking forward to paying for a ticket for the next event.
Yes,
Hip hop,
We'll get a discount.
food.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're VIPs. Please, we're gonna get the lobster and everything. And we're gonna get to meet backstage with the hip hop artists. It's gonna be great.
Yes,
All right,
thank
thanks
you
so
for
much.
having us.
Yeah,
Appreciate
cheers.
it.
All right, so this is Vadim and Sergey Revzin walking from Half Pint with some points in us.
Some points in us.
Some points in us.
We must admit that we had a couple drinks each.
We've had a couple pints.
12% each, so these weren't small pints. By the way, can I just say that I'm holding a microphone right now, and I'm moving it from my face to Sergey's face, and I just came up to a couple entrepreneurs while we were at a bar having a few drinks, and I just wanted to record their stories. And every time you bring a microphone to somebody's face, it's like TRL. Right? You're on the air, right? Whenever somebody says you're on the air and that red light switch is on or whatever,
They feel different.
you feel a little different. It's so funny, and it's something that we try to avoid in these conversations because we want to have dynamic and real,
Authentic
organic,
reactions, yeah.
organic reactions. Sometimes it's hard because the microphone's in your face. But anyways, me and Sergey are used to having the microphone in our faces. Matter of fact, we were performing since we were what, 5?
Like 6-7 years old.
Our parents made us perform a lot. Yeah.
Our dad was the principal of the school, and so we kind of had to be model children. And I remember being super shy when I was 6-7 years old, having to go on stage and kind of having to put up a good front because our dad was the principal. So we've had to put on an act for a while. We were shy in the beginning. We're not now. But
Right.
for many years, even as teenagers, we were very shy.
And actually, if you're shy right now, it's okay. Just know from our experience alone that even as an adult, you can change that habit, or at the very least, you can make it a little bit less painful. Because if you are starting your own company, that's something you have to get past.
Well, yeah, you just learn how to care less about it or be desensitized to it. Just like we've talked about this before, just like a surgeon who's cutting into the first human body. I mean, that's intimidating. Think about it. Anybody that operates on you has to be okay with opening up a body and looking at organs.
Right, but a
And-
couple hundred surgeries in, it becomes
It's second
a
nature.
process-oriented thing. Yeah. All right. Well, we hope that you guys got some value from this conversation. But at the very least, if you are working on your own business and you're in the early stages, realize there's other people that are going through the same pain, and your sort of job right now is to get to things and solve problems a little bit quicker than other people, so you don't have to waste your time.
Well, listen, have a good night. Do you?